Oh, staffing. You mentioned that a couple of times. Like, what's going on with the staffing world right now? Like, it seems like in your mind, hospitality is one thing we've heard. I've heard that like floors of hotels are closing because they can't staff. Like, is this stuff real true? Like what is actually going on in the world
Yeah.
of staffing, and like how do we fix it? Like just your general thoughts, I guess, on like the 2020 staffing conundrum of the world.
Yeah, well, I think it's a couple things. Yes, staffing is that big of an issue, right? So my day job is I'm the director in sales and marketing for a full service hotel.
Was it
Um,
always an issue though?
so it's been a challenge, I think, and I think that for the jobs that we have, right, they're hard jobs. Hospitality in general and dealing with the public in different capacities is tough. It's way worse post COVID or intra COVID than it was pre COVID. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I think, for me personally, my personal opinion is it's a combination of the fact that a lot of people lost their job security through layoffs and, are not willing to go back to feeling insecure in jobs that are in our industry until we feel like we're past it. I think that there's a more competitive wage market right now, just in general, as people are making adjustments to the tight market. And I think ultimately the other piece of it is I just think as an industry we haven't painted a really good picture for people out in the world. Like if you're considering a job in a hotel or a restaurant or a bar right now, and all you see out on everywhere is just like doom and gloom and like we're understaffed and please be so nice because we're all being like abused and shouted at, which is not necessarily the case. Like I think that it's not necessarily like we're not telling the good parts of what it means to be a part of our business, right? Which are that this is one of the only businesses, hospitality, food and beverage, that you can really work your way from the bottom to the top, that you don't necessarily have to have degrees, right, to be successful. And I think that as we get back to that conversation and away from like feel bad for us, we don't have any staff, right? Nobody wants to be the first one into a place that like is understaffed because you're just like signing up to be like to actually absolutely grind, right? I mean, like it's not the same thing as saying like this is an awesome place to work and you should be beating down our door to come work here. And I think that we'll get back to that. I think that a lot of people, especially through interviews and things, have painted that doom and gloom, and I think it's good for people to understand the realities that we're dealing with because it absolutely has been incredibly tough this year to keep hotels operationally, to keep restaurants operational, to keep wineries and bars operational. Um, but we're not going to be recruiting people by continuing to like tell everyone how bad it is.
So I mean, I jokingly wrote the headline, the open to the show, to be like, hey, like not everything in the world is like the worst thing ever. I mean, it's almost like people be like, wow, you opened a business during the pandemic. That's not allowed. Like there's no way that's ever possible. And it's just like, and we, even when Tim and I started this 73 or so shows ago, like we started because there was an opportunity to use COVID to our advantage. And honestly, and we said this a few weeks ago, most of the conversations have zero to do with COVID. Right. And so it's interesting that people have leached on so much to that. Not saying that it's not a bad thing, not saying anything like that. Please, people, don't take that out of context, right? But like the businesses like have figured that aspect out. And it's like it's almost like people like are salivating for the negativity, which is quite
Mm-hmm.
sickening if you really think about it, right? Like, I want these businesses. I want to hear what we can be doing to make things better, not
Right.
just hearing, oh my gosh, there's no jobs available, but not even ask the question like, well, what is happening in that situation? Not once in any of those, higher up level of people who are leading our community, you can take that however you want, has someone said this is the reason why, right? Probably because they don't go to the ground level of a business and figure out what's actually happening. They just think, oh, I went to a restaurant, I stayed at a hotel, and it was the worst experience ever because I had to wait 23 minutes for my bucket of ice. How dare that happen? And to me, it's like you can't fix a problem if you don't know what the problem is. So I appreciate that you articulated that. And it's just like, guys, like most most of the time you go to a restaurant, like I would hope that you're not going to be a Karen to the people, or Kevin, because we need to get Kevin's in there too. But like it's kind of like what you said, like people are getting yelled at. It's like, yo, like why are you that person yelling at that person? Like that's a deeper thing in itself. Like
Well,
it's
right.
okay, calm
And a
down.
lot of line level jobs, right? I think in our industry specifically, but across industries, like they're jobs, they're not necessarily careers. And I think that it's, incumbent on the leaders in our businesses and our business community to help paint a pathway for people that they can turn their job into a career path, or that they can use that job to get to where they're trying to go. And I think that that's one of the advantages of hospitality, and it's just not being told right now, right? Like, I think the other piece of it is that, like, some of these jobs suck, man. Like, they're not a good time. And I think that, there are jobs that have been thankless, that have been underpaid, that people have just had enough of. And I think that, for all of the pushback and positioning of it, like, I think when you actually talk to people who have maybe either been through layoffs or made a career change, like, they're not exactly missing what they used to have, right? Like, the transition away from when they had no choice and their jobs were taken from them or they disappeared overnight, like, they found other things and they're finding a different world and a different avenue to get to where they're trying to go.
Yeah, and if you take at least the guests on our show, a majority of the guests that we've had, either on air or off air, have said that they're doing really, really well. So well to the point where they feel bad and they don't even want to mention it on air because
but don't you think that's the doom and gloom aspect of it, of we're not telling the full context of a story?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that, to Brandon's point, in the sense of, I think that right now it's the easy thing is to say doom and gloom, but what we really need now is leadership. We need leaders to help lead us out of this. And hey, rather than talk about we need staffing or we need this, that, we need to fix things, but it's how we're doing this. What are we putting in place to correct it? And so I appreciate you, Brandon, in the sense of you showing the leadership in the sense of let's do it, let's make this happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, you look at downturns in general, right? Like, how many unicorn companies are out there that came about in 2008 and 2009? Like, opportunity comes when it comes. Like, I didn't go into the year last year planning to buy a business. To be honest, like, I was going into last year really planning to just, like, crush it at work and really, like, take the next steps with the team that I've been leading and really, like, come into our own as a business and in the business that I work for, not the business that I own. And I think that you don't really get to control, when opportunities come. So I think that just kind of being prepared and having some groundwork done, if whether it's, owning a business or having a different job, like, I think you have to take the personal accountability to have the groundwork done so that if the timing works, then it works. And if it doesn't, what does it really cost you? We spent a lot of time last year, like, working for free at the winery to be able to understand how it actually worked. And that was, time that was invested in learning. And I think that, could we have gone about it a different way and been like, oh, how much time are we going to put into it?
I think that's going to come back and benefit you tenfold in the future, because you know so much now that when things do pick up, or whatever you want to call it, the timing is right. Timing is everything, but then you hit the product market fit because you've got the customer list, you got the data to support everything. Then all of a sudden, you're going into hyperdrive, and then you're a slingshot forward where everyone else is just kind of stuck doom scrolling.
As someone who's been directly involved within the startup community for almost a decade, I want to talk to you about a serious pain point. Spending a ton of time trying to understand the business landscape in the 757. That's time that should be focused on growing the business. At Startwheel, we're here to help you by compiling all of the news you need to know about in one place. Now there's no need to search multiple websites. Just head to startwheel.org and see for yourself. That's startwheel.org.